Yeah, it took a really long time to figure out what was going on. Apparently, I've had OCD since I was really, really little, or I started to show symptoms of it when I was really young, but no one quite knew what it was. And then when I got to be a teenager, then it really escalated very suddenly, but I still didn't know what was going on, and the psychologist I saw had no idea what it was. I was misdiagnosed a bunch of times, so my OCD, because it's different for everybody and it's not all about germs or cleaning and whatnot. I'm a very messy person. I have a fear of getting sick that is obsessive, and it started off with not wanting to get a cold, because I was competing at a high level in sport, and every time I'd go to a big competition, I'd get a cold like the day before and never be able to compete. And so then I started trying to look after myself and prevent myself from getting sick, and then that just sort of spiraled out of control into using hand sanitizer 12,000 times a day until my hands cracked open, and washing my hands until they hurt. And at that point, logically, I knew I was probably going to make myself more sick by hurting myself, but I realized that I couldn't stop, and that's where the difference between being a neat person and being a person with OCD really comes in, that even when it's counterintuitive, you physically can't stop doing what you're doing. And even though I'm a relatively logical person, I knew what I was doing was illogical and still couldn't stop.
And how are you today?
How am I today? It's still rough. OCD is one of those things that doesn't really have a cure, but it's one of those things that can be manageable. It's still really not amazing for me, and that's at least in part because we really don't have any specialist treatment where I live here in Perth. And so I'm just doing my best to cope with it on my own, and with a psychologist who's doing her best to help. But I'm definitely making strides a bit at a time. And even though it's hard to do, I kind of have had to learn to take little victories and be happy with those, because it's going to take a long time to get better, but I'm getting there a little bit at a time.
And if you had one message for the whole world, what would it be?
Please don't use the word OCD to describe yourself if you don't have OCD. It is really makes me sad when someone goes, oh yeah, I'm so OCD because I like my room neat, or I like my food separated. And there's a huge difference between liking things in order and having what for me personally is a debilitating disability. It's not the same, and it really sucks for people to use something that I really struggle with as a joke.